This morning we've just received a whole bunch of new Starfield lore from Bethesda, providing some context around the backstory of the game, the factions, the characters involved, and much more. Today I want to go through over 300 years worth of Starfield lore that you must know before jumping into the game on September 1st for new Game Pass users. Now, I do just want to say, after reading this through myself, there aren't really many story spoilers in there, or anything that would spoil the game when launching it for the first time. For me personally, I've done my best to stay away from big spoilers of the game for the story and the plot of the game and what you can do in the game, but understanding the first 300 years prior to us jumping into Starfield just gets me gassed. It is really useful information to understand the concept and get a grasp of what's going on when you do launch at the game, with it being so big and the lore and knowledge of it being so vast. It's interesting information to know. So I want to detail all of that in today's video. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below as to what you think of this, if it makes any sense. If not, are you hyped for Starfield in general? But without further ado, let's dive straight in. The story of Starfield so far. This will be in a timeline format detailing key character names involved in the story, their role in discovering different planets, constellations and different planetary systems. The footage in the background won't be as accurate as I'd like it to be in terms of speaking about different places and showing them on screen, because I believe a lot of the footage, we just don't have it yet. The game isn't obviously out, so we can't go around and get the footage for the different places exactly, so it will just kind of be a mismatch just to give you a good idea, but some areas may not be accurate, just to put that out there as well. Leave your questions and comments down below, of course, even some theories of what we think will happen in Starfield and the story going forward, but let's crack on. In 2050, humans first arrived on Mars and worked to colonize the planet, most likely thanks to our friend Elon. And just 50 years later in the Starfield Universe, in 2100, humans were living in space. Not just in our solar system, but other ones. How they discovered this technology in such a short period of time, we don't know just yet, but I'm sure this will become clear when the game does finally release and in some lore that we find around the place. Humans continued to explore space, and by 2156, came across a place in space called Alpha Centauri, approximately 4.37 light years away from Earth, and by 2159, the United Colonies are established, which is one of the factions in Starfield. 1 year later, a place named New Atlantis is founded, which became the official capital city of the United Colonies in 2161, where most of the government, business and decisions would be made moving forward. This place was built over a 7-year period, with the United Colonies looking to seek out new planetary systems and settlements. 7 years later, going on to 2167, a place called Cayenne is founded by a man named Solomon Coe, in which he founded a settlement on this planet and named it Aquila City. Some years later, in 2188, as Solomon Coe builds up this settlement on Aquila City, he invited someone named Volai to join Cayenne as a part of this new alliance, and this was called the Freestar Collective. The Freestar Collective is officially formed as of 2189, and again, this is another faction in Starfield. It was between 2188 and 2194 that there was a bit of a beef brewing between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective. This all began when the United Colonies positioned a star station called the Clinic in the orbit around a planet named Dipala. This was situated in a star system named Narion. The unaffiliated people of the Narion star system seen this as the United Colonies attempting to expand their borders, which was not agreed upon by the people of this system. The Council on Narion demanded that the United Colonies must remove the star station immediately. However, they refused. This sparked the Council of Narion to vote in the favour of pairing and partnering with the Freestar Collective when looking for a faction to be a part of to essentially look after the welfare of their people and the planet. In 2195, Freestar Collective mobilised to protect this star system after being voted in favour of. However, in 2196, the United Colonies were not going down without a fight. In response to being voted against, the United Colonies moved their fleet into Narion's system, and the Freestar Collective do exactly the same, starting a war between the two factions, which sparked the beginning of the Narion War. I actually believe it's pronounced Narion. I'm going to say that from now on, so I'm sorry if I vexed anyone in the comments down below. This war was long and drawn out over a 20-year period, finally with the backlash from the public coming in 2216. A treaty was finally signed between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective in 2216, which in turn ended the conflict between the two factions. The terminology settled system is formalised in the treaty as well, to ensure that these factions cannot just take over a settled system and claim it for their own without the appropriate alliance with that settlement. Fast forwarding 5 years later, the Freestar Collective start a new initiation named the Freestar Rangers, which are founded as an elite protective and investigative group dedicated to serving all citizens of the Freestar Collective. This would be the group to ensure the safeguarding of the different systems that the Freestar Collective were a part of, and even any new settlements that would be brought into the mix, expanded their networks across the solar systems and different planetary systems, and potentially ones that are yet to be discovered. Much time later, in 2275, the Constellation is formed by someone named Sebastian Banks. The original members of this constellation include members such as Chloe Bao, who was a very accomplished physicist, Aja Mamesa, the youngest member of Sebastian's protege, Darius Andris, a botanist and specialist in xenoflora. For someone that doesn't know what a botanist is, it's essentially someone that studies the biology of plants, fungi and other organisms such as lichens and algae and things along those lines. So it's someone that the growth of things and life, essentially. Growing plants. We then have Bernadetta Laurent, a wealthy heiress and adventurer, Everade Gill, former smuggler, and finally, Kadri Toma, biologist and physician. To accommodate all of these members and allow them to complete any work that's needed, a lodge was built in New Atlantis to serve the needs of other people in the Constellation for generations to come. This would go on to be a strong team of like-minded people with the same goal in mind. This goal, however, will be revealed when the game does of course launch. Fast forwarding 30 years into the future, so quite a significant jump later, the Freestar Collective began a farming activity on a new planet named Vesta, which was located in the lunar planetary system. By 2308, the United Colonies claimed that once the Freestar Collective established a colony in a fourth star system, they were violating the Treaty of Narion set all those years ago. Diplomatic talks between the two factions broke down when this violation order was issued to the Freestar Collective, with the United Colonies laying siege on the planet Vesta, killing anyone who stayed behind or was brought into the planet to defend it. This sparked the beginning of the Colony Wars. However, Constellation, who was founded by Sebastian Banks, came across the first ever foreign artifact, one that no one had ever seen or came across before. This was immediately taken and hidden away in the Constellation archives in 2310 until they could figure out what it was. 1 year later, in 2311, the Colony War came to an end. Multiple civilian and Freestar Collective ships take down a huge and major vessel within the United Colonies Navy, using hit-and-run tactics, ruling them unable to continue to fight back. So they essentially pulled out of the war, deeming Freestar Collective the winners. 4 years later, however, in 2315, the United Colonies were plotting a plan to fight back against the Freestar Collective and formed a new group named the United Colonies Vanguard. The Vanguard is the United Colonies' own civilian navy, relying on civilians using their own ships, who pledged to protect the United Colonies and its interest. This was a sneaky tactic used by Freestar Collective, because they were essentially recruiting different people from these different systems and settlements, having them use their own ships so they didn't have to, fork out to use their own. And essentially, if they did do this and those civilian ships were fighting against the United Colonies, they could just say, they're not with us. They are doing it on their own back if they really had to save themselves, which was sneaky. Understandably, the United Colonies wanted an absolute piece of that, so they did this, and that's where they made the Vanguard, essentially, and they were plotting an attack against them ever since. The ultimate reward for the citizens from the service that these civilians pledged towards the United Colonies was to become citizens of the United Colony, which for people outside looking in makes it look like a dreamland, offering protection, the ability to be a part of something bigger as well. Someone named Sarah Morgan became the youngest head of the United Colonies Navigator Corps, though it was a short-lived position as the division is shut down in 2320. However, she casts adrift but is still eager to put her training to good use, so Morgan leaves the United Colonies and joins the Constellation. In 2321, someone named Walter Stroud, who is the co-owner of Stroud Eklund, a settled system premier starship manufacturer, also then goes on to join the Constellation and becomes its primary financial backer. This would go on to be huge for the Constellation, and the research they were carrying out with these alien foreign artifacts later on down the line, which was completed all the way up until 2326. In that time between 2326 and 2328, many people would join the Constellation, even going to the extent to purchase a star station and modify it to become a deep space scanner, nicknamed the Eye. At this point, we're now in 2330, and that's where we come in, where Starfield actually kicks off, and where we'll be playing on day one. Look, ultimately this lore now is fairly vague, right? There's some people we don't really know who they are, what their purpose are. There's just a couple of names thrown out here and there. We have 3 different factions or teams, essentially. The United Colonies, we have the Freestar Collective, and the Constellation. It is fairly vague, but all we need to know is that the United Colonies and Freestar Collective were in a bit of beef together, and they have not been on good terms ever since. The Constellation is a researching facility as well, with physicians, biologists, botanists involved as well, and they have this artifact. Where this artifact's come from, what it is, we don't really know what it is, and I think that's the point of Starfield, to understand what this thing is, to investigate it further, and to figure out what it's capable of doing. So the idea of the game is to find out, explore the universe, understand more around what this object is, and what it's capable of. I'm really excited to do exactly that over 100 different solar systems, over 1,000 different planets. It's going to be absolutely insane, guys. And of course, we're going to have a story explained and breakdowns of lore on the channel, because there's going to be so much lore in Starfield that I can't wait to dive into and just to break down and have a lot of fun talking about. So if you're interested in that, stick around on the channel, everyone. It's going to be jam-packed in September with content, so you do not want to miss that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, what you think. And yeah, if I've missed anything, if there's anything you guys wanted to fill in as well with any other lore you've heard around about with developers talking about it, or Starfield Direct, or whatever it might be, leave it in the comments down below, and let's put something together to really fill in everyone the previous 300 years of Starfield. Anyway, subscribe if you guys are brand new. We'll see you guys next time.